Hey guys, FilthyRobot here. Just wanted to do a quick intro for our next Darkest Dungeon series. This is going to be for Season 11, and Season 11 is a challenge run. So let's explain what that means and why we're doing it. First off, I'm doing challenge runs because, in my opinion, the meta for Darkest Dungeon is fairly stale or fairly stable, depending on how you look at it. And the meta for Darkest Dungeon, the best things you can do, the most consistent ways to reliably beat the game on the hardest difficulties with the hardest environmental situations are lots of stuns, lots of stress healing, kill the high threat targets in the back, and then drag out the remaining fight until you can get your health and stress back to good levels. And rinse and repeat. Skip all the level 5 content as possible. Skip all the level 5 bosses. Spend as little time as possible in the level 5 dungeons, etc., etc. You're basically minimizing the risk to your characters and maximizing your likelihood of getting through all the content to the final bosses, Darkest Dungeons to beat the game. That's the meta right now for Darkest Dungeon. So the reason why I do challenge runs is to shake up that meta a little bit, to allow myself to experience the game in other ways, to be playing with suboptimal strategies, with weaker classes, with using weaker abilities, or using strategies that aren't as good as the stress, the stun and stress healing kind of stalling strategies, right? So that's the point of the challenge run. That's the first point. The second point of a challenge run is to make the game a little bit harder. The game's already pretty hard, but I like to turn up the difficulty a little bit more. I know you guys enjoy seeing very, very challenging scenarios, enjoy seeing me suffering, and I enjoy playing very, very, very challenging scenarios. So that's the second goal of the challenge runs. So let's talk about this challenge run in particular, Season 11 challenge run. First of all, the file we're using here to demonstrate a couple things is not the file from that challenge run. So I'm going to show you a Crusader here in a minute, but this is Crusader from a different run. So the fact that this Crusader has been to the Darkest Dungeon doesn't mean anything. This just means it's a previous thing that I'm using for demo purposes. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what are the rules of this particular challenge? The first rule is it's going to be Blood Moon mode. For those of you who don't know what Blood Moon mode is, this is the same as NG+, it's the same as Stygian mode, and it's basically hard mode. What happens is when you beat Darkest Dungeon once, you unlock the option to play on an increased difficulty. The increased difficulty has harder monsters that hit harder, have more health, things like this, basically. I think there's a stress component to it as well. Basically, it ups the difficulty of the game, and it gives you some limitations in terms of the number of deaths and the number of weeks you have to complete the game. So it makes the game harder. We're going to be playing on hard mode. Number 2. No in-combat stress healing skills allowed. There are 3 classes that have these skills. They are the Crusader. Well, there's actually more in this if you consider the self skills as well. But basically, there's a number of skills. I think there's 5, but maybe 6 that will decrease stress directly. The Crusader's Inspiring Cry, the Houndmaster's the Dog's Howl, the Abomination Absolution, the Leper's Withstand, and the Jester's Inspiring Ballad, or whatever it's called. I think it might not even be called that one, but which inspiring tune, whichever one it is that single target reduces stress. Basically, as I said, the meta is about extending the fight duration to give yourself time to stress heal everybody down to 0. I want to do away with that for this playthrough. I'm a little bit tired of that meta right now. I want to try something entirely different. It's not going to be as good probably, which means it's going to be harder, but we're going to ban those skills. So for the skills that only target stress, like the Jester's skill, the Leper's Withstand, and the Hound's Cry, all of those I'm just not using. I'm not going to train those skills. I'm not going to use those skills. For the skills that have multiple effects, like Inspiring Cry on the Crusader, which has a heal, a plus torchlight, and a stress reduction, I've just modded off the stress reduction portion of that. So I want the skill to be available because the whole point is to increase diversity of stuff that I'm using, and I don't want to remove skills that I don't have to, but I'm taking away the stress healing portion of that. And the same with the Abominations. So the Abominations, where's my Abomination? Right here. My Abominations Absolution, which is normally a stress and health heal, now only heals health. That way I can still use these abilities but not have the stress heal element that I want removed. And I suppose on one hand, I should have probably just modded out the minus stress portion of Withstand, but I just ended up not training Withstand, so I'm just not going to use Withstand in this playthrough. So don't even worry about that because it's just not going to be played in this playthrough. Okay, and finally, this last one's kind of cool. I like this this last restriction. The last restriction is all 16 classes must enter the darkest dungeon. Seems kind of not that big a deal on the first pass at that, but let's just look at this, what this actually means. There are 4 darkest dungeon missions with 4 people allowed to go to each darkest dungeon, which means there's a total of only 16 slots. We have 16 classes. That means each character has to go to the darkest dungeon, and because each character has to go and there's only 16 slots, I'm never going to be allowed to bring a duplicate. That means I can't bring 2 Vestals or 2 Occultists, even though there are 4 missions, which means 2 of the missions I play in the darkest dungeon aren't going to have a Vestal or an Occultist. So they're not going to have one of the 2 dedicated healing classes in the game. So that means we're going to have to figure out alternative methods for keeping our guys alive in at least 2 of the darkest dungeons. So hopefully this is going to be a fun run. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please let me know what you think of it. And you're always welcome to suggest other challenge run ideas. I do a fair number of Darkest Dungeon challenge runs. You can suggest them either in the comment sections of these videos or my my Reddit, my subreddit for FilthyRobot. It's just FilthyRobot. If you want to check that out for suggestions for future challenge runs. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped clarify what's going on in this run and why it's a little different than other runs. And hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Thanks for watching.